Hi, my name is Shawnell Hicks, and I did my report on Nicomachean Ethics, the Nicomachean Ethics, by Aristotle. Aristotle was a Greek philosopher. He studied in multiple areas. Some of those areas are logic, politics, ethics, rhetoric, mathematics, metaphysics, and psychology. Of course, a lot of these, or the majority of actually everything, I think that, well, I can't say everything, but what I think is almost everything, all the way up until today, and even still today, I think we're still reading his writings and understandings on these specific areas and much more, and we are able to go more in depth into our studies, because back then, for instance, because he studied like botany and biology, we didn't have up-to-date microscopes. We didn't have microscopes like we do today. We didn't have testing for DNA. We didn't have none of that. So to take Aristotle's understanding and then use the advances and technology that we have today has really built something for us. Aristotle was a student of Plato for quite some time, and I'm kind of biased when it comes to Aristotle's work. I really like his study of logic, or his writings on logic. That's what I like studying. He created what is the Aristotelian logic, and when he created logic, he said that deductive validity of any argument can be determined by its structure rather than content. Or at least that's what the research that I've done says, which is almost kind of hard for me to believe, because some of the writing that I've read, especially from this book right here, I mean, he's just absolutely brilliant. And so he had to have been able to figure out that it's the structure of the argument, or the syllogism, whatever it is. The structure is important, but I think more important is the context within. Because we can use the same setup for an argument, but throw lies in and it just not be true, not be valid. Can be very unsound even. So further into the research, it was kind of for his syllogisms was A equals B, C equals A, therefore C equals B. And as we know today, that's not always true. So whether I am skeptical about the things that I read. So I really do think that maybe it wasn't exactly, a lot of the stuff isn't exactly true, but I think with further study, I might be able to get to a better understanding of things. But anyways, another big thing about Aristotle, he not only was a student of Plato, but he tutored Alexander the Great for 3 years, from the time Alexander was 13 up until he was 16. And I know, especially in regular, first grade through 12th grade, eventually you get really in depth with Alexander the Great, the history of Alexander the Great and all the things that he did, but I don't think enough is put towards who taught him, which was Aristotle. So those are my thoughts on that. And so a timeline of Aristotle. Aristotle was born in 384 BC, and Stagirius, Greece. Excuse me if I pronounced that wrong. And he studied at Plato's Academy from the time he was 17 up until he was 37 years old. That's a really long time. Sitting here because I'd seen this before, but really sitting here doing this project, I was like, that's 20 years. That's that's a really long time. That's like somebody being in college for 20 years, and he didn't just specialize in one area. Of course, we think that he did. Everybody thinks of Aristotle, and they're like, oh, you're talking about that Greek philosopher. But his philosophies were in so many different areas. So that's a long time, 20 years. Hashtag goals. And so in 343, he moved to tutor Alexander the Great at the Temple of Nymphs, which I thought was really cool because I think King Philip is what he was referred to, asked Aristotle to come tutor his 13-year-old Alexander. So, and he did that for 3 years up until Alexander was 16. Unfortunately, Alexander died at the age of 33, but Alexander the Great went down in history. And so for somebody who studied all these specific things for like 20 years to put so much into somebody at the age of 13, from the ages of 13 to 16, that this kid went on to try to conquer the world. I mean, he pretty much did. That's impressive. You have to be pretty smart to be able to put into somebody to pull some stuff like that off. And then unfortunately, Aristotle, died in 322 BC in Chalcis, Chalcis, Greece. Excuse me, I'm not fluent in Greek, but and then the first 50 pages, man, this book was so difficult to read. I'm not used to reading the actual interpretations of writing from the philosophers, but so it was definitely challenging. What I'm used to reading is people that have studied philosophers' writings and then put it into their own words. But so book 1 talks about the ultimate end should be good. He makes it very clear that, especially like right from the beginning, that politics are of the most important. And he also says to be a good expert in one area one must have a lot of experience in that, and not must be a jack of all trades is what we'd say today. And then there was some more that got into gratification and pleasure and stuff like that, and that was usually, I guess, for vulgar people, that the people that sought good were deep into politics, studying and stuff like that. So book 1 was interesting but difficult, and as for book 2, interesting but difficult. Book 2 says that there is virtue of thought and virtue of character. And so what I think is interesting about the talk on the virtue of thought and virtue of character kind of gets into epistemology, the study of knowledge, where it is, and that's talked about obviously with this, but so where does thought come from? Is it through sense experience? Is it through something else? So he doesn't get too deep into that, but on thought, where our thoughts come from, where our knowledge comes from, was the first one, and then virtue of character. And he said that virtue of character comes through somewhat of a habit, something that we continuously put effort into and we build. So virtue of thought is coming from somewhere, but we might not be sure where that thought is coming from, but virtue of character is coming from experience, something that we're actually putting effort into. And then virtue and vice. And also another big thing I think in book 2 was we're not just supposed to acquire knowledge just to know. We're supposed to acquire knowledge for action. And I think that means, if you study something for a long time, put that knowledge that you've learned into action to help yourself or other people. And then the impact on today's society. Aristotle's writings are what philosophers have built off of and what has inspired philosophers since his writings and teachings. And what I mean by that more in depth is a lot of Aristotle's work went to trash, unfortunately. Well, not to trash, but did not make it. I think it was 33 of his writings made it from the library. But not only did people take those specific writings and go off of it, people have taken from there on. People have taken writings that people have learned from Aristotle and went off of that. So it's just been kind of like a domino effect. And then again, maybe I'm biased on the study of logic. The areas of logic have changed, obviously, since then. And so the research that I've done said that we have advanced with logical understanding, which could be possible, but again, I think he was a very brilliant man. So to say that he wasn't able to teach or understand that it's not just about the setup of the argument, but also about the content in it, I'm not sure. But anyways, so that was this, and thank you so much.